He's the best at what he does, and what he does isn't very nice. But also, some of the stuff he does is kinda weird. Wolverine is a more complicated character than you might think. We all know the basics of Wolverine. He heals really fast, his bones are coated in unbreakable adamantium, and he has a sweet set of claws. For most people, that would be all the powers that they would need. But there's other powers and side effects that come with being Wolverine that may not be as well known. With the world's angriest Canadian being the breakaway star of the X-Men franchise at the movies as well, there's even more strange things to know about how the man known as Logan made the leap from page to screen. Let's take a look. One of the main things that makes Wolverine Wolverine is his healing factor. He's not the only Marvel hero that gets a do-over on any mistakes that might cause injury, but he has made the most of it. One of the ways he's done that is by not dying. Like, for a really, really long time. Logan was born in the 80s. That is, the 1880s. Turns out that Logan had been hopping around the world for a while before becoming Canada's answer to the super soldier. In this regard, he shares something with the Incredible Hulk and tortoises. That's negligible senescence. Since the cells are created new and generally tougher, Logan doesn't age traditionally. Unlike a tortoise or the Hulk, Logan does eventually age. In fact, the storyline where he started showing his age, Old Man Logan, became the basis for Hugh Jackman's final appearance as the titular character. Although a part of that is down to the adamantium on his bones poisoning his system. Without that, who knows how long Logan would stick around. For a guy whose signature move is to have Colossus throw him at the most dangerous thing he can find, it's pretty impressive. We all have that thing we'd like to learn if we just had the time. Maybe we wanted to pick up macrame or finally learn how to play the piano, but Fortnite just added a bunch of new maps and skins and there are only so many hours in the day. But if you had an unnaturally long life thanks to your accelerated healing powers, you have times to pick things up here and there. Especially if you're roaming the world trying to find a place in it that makes the best out of your healing abilities and the bone claws that come out of your hand. For Wolverine, that means that he's had the time to not only learn a lot of fighting and tactics skills, but also has allowed him to become a polyglot. Polyglot is a fancy term for someone who knows a bunch of languages. And thanks to Logan's time and wandering feet, he's picked up a lot of languages. And like I said, he's also learned a lot of fighting techniques and had the time to hone that muscle memory and his reflexes to make him a formidable fighter even without claws. One of the hallmarks of Logan for a long time was the mystery of how he got the way he is. He knew that his skeleton was covered in Marvel's unbreakable miracle metal, but he didn't know why. All he knew is that it made him angry. Eventually, Professor X was able to unlock the truth of the Weapon X program that was so traumatic that he ended up blocking it out. But the Weapon X program wasn't the only thing that he forgot. He forgot his own name. No, not his first name, his whole name. Logan was actually the name of the family friend that killed Wolverine's father during an argument. The event had a profound effect on the young Wolverine, and his brain decided that it had enough of thinking about his name, so it didn't. It turns out that his propensity to forget is just a side effect of his healing factor. As a significant traumatic event happens, his brain heals it quickly, which is to say it packs it away and never thinks of it again. Logan's real name is James Howlett, which doesn't sound as cool as Logan. A long life of training, learning, and forgetting everything super bad that happened to you might be enough for most people, but Wolverine exists in the Marvel Universe. There's a lot of different kinds of threats that one can face in that universe, including Werewolf by Night. Is there another kind of werewolf? And actual Dracula. The one thing these two classic monsters share is the ability to make other people like them. Dracula can make people vampires, and Werewolf by Night can make new werewolves out of anyone he doesn't kill all the way. While it might be fun to start thinking about a werewolf Wolverine, don't get used to it. Another aspect of his healing factor is that it also heals curses. How does that work, you ask? Turns out the curses are tied to your cells just like anything else. But Wolverine views cursed cells as injured and replaces them. Just like someone who builds up immunity to any disease, Wolverine's tolerance increases with each attempt. So while the first time around the curse might take effect for a moment, his body will fight back in the end. Logan is a hard-drinking, hard-smoking man. He has a rough life, so of course he would want to take the edge off now and then. Plus, his healing factor doesn't prevent him from feeling pain, including when his claws come out, so you could excuse him for wanting to numb the pain a little, right? Well, like a lot of things, it's not that simple for old Wolverine. The same thing that keeps him standing when the world is punching and stabbing him also keeps him standing when he's throwing a few back. In fact, if he really wants to feel even a little bit of the effects of alcohol, he's gonna need to take in a lot of it. That's because his healing power nullifies the effects of alcohol. So when you see him throwing them back in moments of quiet despair, at least part of that is him thinking about how much of the stuff he has to buy in order to feel it for just a little bit. That bar tab can get depressing. Now, if there's one thing that we all know about Logan, it's that he hails from the Great White North, known as Canada. Oh, Canada! Who knew they wanted a super soldier? Should have asked me. There are a few things that everyone knows about Canada. They like hockey, they're really polite, some of them say about funny, a boot, and the winters are really cold. That last part gets truer the further north you go, especially during the winter. When Wolverine debuted in The Incredible Hulk number 181, it's when the Hulk was trying to find some isolation in the cold northlands of Canada that he encounters the only Canadian that doesn't say sorry. The Hulk was there because he thought no one else could stand the super cold weather, but for largely the same reasons the Hulk could handle it, so can Wolverine. His healing factor allows him to shrug off the damaging effects of extreme weather. In fact, he's been left out in the cold with nothing to protect him before and not only wasn't affected, but ended up just having a nice nap. One of the depressing things about working out is how long it takes to see results. You watch what you eat, you keep your heart rate up, you lift the heavy things, you put them back down, and after a few weeks, you can lift slightly heavier things. In contrast, if you want a burrito, you buy a burrito, then you're eating a burrito. Instant gratification. Part of what takes so long with working out is that the lifting of heavy things damages the muscle, causing it to rebuild stronger. So you have to have the time to compound that process into newer, stronger muscles. Well, when you have a healing factor, that can accelerate the process. Not only does that result in Wolverine having superhuman strength, it also means that he doesn't get worn out like the rest of us. When most of us need a nice laydown and maybe a warm pad after exerting themselves, Wolverine just keeps getting stronger. Really, you're just making him mad, and he starts mad to begin with. There are plenty of animals in the world that have varying degrees of regenerative powers. There are certain lizards that can detach their tail in an emergency and are able to regrow it. Salamanders can regrow limbs and partially damaged organs. Immune cells called macrophages restart the organ and limb building in salamanders and axolotl. Yeah, science! For axolotl, they need those macrophages. Whatever the mutant gene in Wolverine is that makes him regenerate is a lot more ever-present. Just how much Wolverine needs to be left over for him to regenerate? A single drop of blood, it turns out. With conditions, that is. In X-Men Annual number 11, Wolverine threw himself in harm's way to protect Storm, resulting in the villain Horde pulling his heart out. Kalima! A single drop of Logan's blood got on the crystal of ultimate vision, causing that drop to regenerate Wolverine with cosmic powers, which Wolverine shrugged off because he's not power greedy. Even without assistance from a mystic crystal, Wolverine can come back from being mostly gone, even when the Hulk ripped him in half. Deadpool knows what that's like. Another one of Wolverine's main powers is his heightened senses. His sense of smell is so acute that secret identities are a waste of time. Wait, does that mean that someone could figure out superheroes' secret identities just by using a bloodhound? This is what villains get for not being dog people. He also has acute vision, including telescopic vision and night vision. If you want to fool Wolverine, you have to pull out all the stops. Not just in trying to impersonate other people, which takes Mysterio levels of deception, but just trying to get away with telling him that those mutton chops still look current. Just like another Marvel hero with heightened senses, Wolverine is able to use those senses to detect when someone lies to him based on their heart rate. So on top of being a raging, fighting machine that is nearly impossible to stop, you can't even lie to him and say you got a thing to get out of a fight. Granted, an angry man with claws coming out of his hands grilling you would make anyone's heart skip, but it seems to work for him. Most of us think that we have a special connection with our pets. Mostly though, that's because we have a limited number of expectations from us. Fluffenstein needs to be fed, head scritched, and the door to be held open so she can change her mind about going outside. Why? Why did you stand there meowing only to walk off after I opened the door? Did you want me to leave? You're cold, Fluffenstein. Stone cold. Wolverine does have that special relationship with animals, however. In fact, he has enough empathy with animals that it can go two ways. He can get what animals are after and convey his own wishes. That's down to him using the same set of language tools they have, their senses. By working in the same sensory world as the animals he encounters, including being able to smell pheromones, Wolverine knows where the animals are coming from. Rather than talking to the animals Doolittle style, he uses body language, sound, and positioning to get animals on his side. Oh, seriously, the door again? Why do you hate me, Fluffenstein? One of the things that makes the Hulk so formidable is that as his anger increases, the more powerful he becomes, with there seeming to be no limit to the rage he feels. It just so happens that this is a trait he shares with his one-time foe, Wolverine. While Wolverine isn't exactly powered by rage in the same way that the Hulk is, the dude is not exactly a paragon of anger management. Logan actually puts a lot of effort into containing his more primal rage because just like the Hulk, when he takes the cork off the rage bottle, things go off the rails pretty quickly. Maybe not destroy half of downtown Johannesburg bad, but pretty bad. In Wolverine's berserker rage, as we know, Wolverine loses all senses of rationality or control. He becomes the embodiment of to a hammer everything looks like a nail. He'll thrash out at anything that moves. To make matters worse, all of the rest of his powers kick into high gear, including his regeneration, meaning the longer he goes, the stronger and more savage he gets. He did say that what he does isn't very nice. Not everything that Wolverine does comes from his base set of powers. Being a murder machine for over a century means that he's going to run into other people with abilities, and eventually that starts to cross-pollinate. Rogue started out as someone who could just temporarily borrow people's powers until she got into it with Carol Danvers and ended up with a portion of her powers and psyche permanently. We're all waiting for that to happen in the MCU, right? That is going to be great. Anyway, Wolverine has met Professor X more than he remembers. The first time, he was there to kill the founder of the X-Men, but Professor X wasn't into it, so he cleared out Wolverine's mind so he didn't know what he was there for. By way of apology, Xavier installed a certain level of psychic protection in Logan's mind to keep another psionic from poking around in the head of one of the deadliest people in the Marvel Universe, which makes a whole lot of sense. Remember Johannesburg. If you ask, Logan will tell you that he's a loner. He's that quintessential 80s and 90s lone wolf anti-hero. You don't want to get involved with him, darling. He's a rough ride. People get hurt. Don't try and change me, baby. We're both better off if I'm just on my own. A lonely man in a lonely world. Except, Logan is actually terrible at being a loner. He's really more of a joiner. He's been on the X-Men, the X-Force, 3 different Avengers teams, and was a member of Canada's superhero team Alpha Flight. He's even been part of the Fantastic Four during a strange period where that included Spider-Man and Ghost Rider. You heard me. It's not just the team-ups. He's also paired up with various heroes for lengthy adventures as a mentor, bromance, or a reluctant fellow traveler. He even took Kitty Pryde on a tour of Japan. Thanks to his age, he's had time to run into all sorts of heroes, like spending a little of World War II with Captain America himself. He's even teamed up with Spider-Man in a popular storyline. Speaking of Spider-Man, we almost got an epic surprise with the wall crawler and his unlikely mutant friend. Film rights, as we've learned over the last decade, are a tricky thing. For instance, Disney owns the rights to the Hulk, but not to a Hulk solo movie. So now the Hulk piggybacks in other people's movies. Spider-Man's film rights were with Sony until Disney and Sony worked something out. Then they didn't. Then they did again. The Mutants were locked away at Fox with the Fantastic Four until Disney won the game of corporate hungry hippo and obtained Fox, bringing Mutants and the Fantastic Four back home. Before showing up in Civil War, Spider-Man was almost part of another surprise crossover. Hugh Jackman was scheduled to make a cameo in Sam Raimi's 2002 film Spider-Man. The only thing that held up Wolverine's appearance? They couldn't find the costume. That's right. Not only was Wolverine going to show up in a Spider-Man movie, he was going to do it in the costume. I'm just going to sit down for a second. While we're on the subject of Wolverine on the big screen, after 18 years as the character and numerous appearances, it's hard to imagine anyone else playing the rugged Logan than Hugh Jackman. Sure, he's almost a foot taller than the character he's playing, but he does it so well it just doesn't matter that much. As we prepare for the Mutants coming to the MCU and a new set of actors taking on those roles, we can look back at Wolverines that never were. Before X-Men finally hit screens in 2000 with Jackman as Wolverine, there was a lot of fan casting, including superfan Glenn Danzig fan casting himself. Dougray Scott was actually Bryan Singer's first choice for Wolverine, but Tom Cruise said no. Scott was committed to Mission Impossible 2 and wouldn't accommodate Scott's schedule to take on the role of Logan. Even deeper, at one point, James Cameron was eyeing an X-Men movie. His choice for Wolverine? Bob Hoskins of Who Framed Roger Rabbit fame. He is short. Those are some of the stranger parts of being Wolverine. What's your favorite? What did we leave out? Could Bob Hoskins have beefed up for the role? Let us know in the comments, and while you're there, why not subscribe to CBR for the latest videos? Thanks for watching.